Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. It's been a while. If you guys wondered where I've been, just had a child, so have to do dad stuff now, and sitting around for an hour isn't the best use of my time. So, not that I don't enjoy it, I just needed to get into the swing of things, and now we're back. And we have great guests today. Jatmon, how's it going, bro?
I'm doing great. Really happy to be here.
Yeah, so I was on your podcast, so
hmm
interested to be on the other side of this now. Now I get the controls and ask you the questions. But as a fan of Fortnite, as somebody that just hopefully watched FNCS Grand Finals, I thought that was some of the most entertaining Fortnite that I've seen in a while. Did you watch it? What are your thoughts? Would love to kind of dive into that with you.
Yeah. I was doing a watch party for Prodigy. So we were mainly focused on our rosters, players, of course. But you watch the broadcast, you get a good feel for a lot of the storylines and all that stuff. And it was really, really fun to watch. I think I mostly watched NA. I saw some EU highlights. Um, it was day one was not as interesting, I think, but it was still an overall really enjoyable watch experience. Day two was really, really cool, just seeing all the convergence of everybody competing really well, and storylines that were kind of coming to a head right towards the end. You get a feel for all of that, and Prodigy won 4 out of the 6 games on day two, so that was a big personal bonus for me, and the org. Proud of all the boys. So
Nice. So you guys, what's your involvement with Prodigy? I see you're the
yeah,
content
so
director, but what does that
yeah, so
mean?
that's my official title. I've taken on a lot more responsibility, I think, than just that. So, what I was brought on for originally was to oversee all of the content production, to ideate content, to execute recordings and things of that nature. Just kind of making sure all of our socials, especially our YouTube, runs well. And yeah, I've done a lot more than that now. I'm kind of in a head management type of role as well. So we're doing everything, budgeting and signings and all of that stuff. Um, so yeah, I've just kind of I'm in conversations with the ownership and management a lot, as well as making sure the content runs smoothly.
Nice. I imagine that's a disaster at times with a new organization. Not gonna
Oh,
to say that negatively, but that's just how it works. Trying to start a business, and that's inherently
mhm,
what an esports organization is, and
yeah,
dealing with mostly young people, and I mean yourself
yeah.
included. You're fairly young. Um, it-
I'm old for the calm, I would say. But
yeah.
yeah, I get called an old man all the time. But yeah, no, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I am still very young. Yeah.
So how has when did you start, and how did that develop? Because now it sounds like you're doing 3 jobs.
Yeah. Um, so it started, during COVID. I feel like that's a lot of the people's stories at this point now, in the esports scene especially. But I in my sophomore year of high school, I had a car accident that caused a knee injury that um, ended up resulting in 2 surgeries. I lost sports after that point, so I was a multi-sport athlete. Football, basketball, baseball was my whole thing, as well as performing arts. I was an actor, singer, dancer, whatever. So I was doing a lot, and then it kind of went to nothing. Um, I ended up transferring out of the school that I was at from 7th grade through my sophomore year to the best like public high school in my state, because I couldn't play sports, because I wasn't really participating in performing arts anymore. So um, COVID was around, and I was doing no extracurriculars, so I was just really bored at home all day. So I was playing a lot of Fortnite anyway, and I was watching Ninja and Tim the Tap Man and Cypher PK and just all these creators, and I was like, wow, this is like so cool. And I just felt like it was a really cool space, and there was a lot of opportunity to use the talents that I had built up throughout my life. So started making content, and it just kind of went from there. I was a independent content creator and doing Twitch streams and all that for a couple years, and um, then it was, I think, around January of last year. Pipeline was building their roster, and they kind of wanted to venture more into content, and they I had Avash, one of the owners, on my podcast, and we started talking from there. And I was like, just kind of jokingly after, because I like to kind of decompress with my guests after a recording, and just kind of off the record, and
I feel
build
you. I'm the
connection
same way.
and stuff like that. Yeah. Um, so we were just talking, and I kind of like jokingly threw out like, oh yeah, maybe like Pipeline would want to bring on the podcast as part of their whole umbrella and branching out into different types of content. And he was like, you know what, that's actually not a terrible idea. Let me think about that. And then we started talking, and it was about a month later, I think, that we actually signed contracts. And um, during that negotiation period, they wanted to bring me on as more than that. So I was doing the content thing there, and I guess their idea with that was they wanted me to be the face of the brand, because they had a lot of like faceless players and creators, and they just kind of wanted something consistent across all of the team socials and team content. So that's what I became. I was doing all the team videos. I was at least the intro or outro, just so there was a familiar face and kind of a rhythm to it that people were used to. And then I was, doing interview content and watch parties and podcasts and all that under the Pipeline name. And I think that was when I think that would be, if anyone knows me in the com, that would be for sure what I'm most known for, is that period on Pipeline. And that was just kind of the springboard. I made a lot of connections and networking through that time, which I'm super grateful for. The podcast, continued to do better, and we continued getting better and better guests throughout that time. And then now, so I was a free agent when Pipeline disbanded, when we shut down, which was heartbreaking for me, because it was truly like a magical experience for me on that org. Um, yeah, and then I was in talks with several orgs for the first like month that I was a free agent, and nothing really panned out. Nothing felt right to me. And then one of my buddies from Pipeline, one of the old owners, Sad, hit me up and was like, "Hey, like, you might want to reconsider this with Prodigy." And I got in talks with them again, and we were talking, and I really liked the vision that they had. It gave me, I think, a lot of the best parts of what I saw in Pipeline was here, but it was also unique and different and new, and it felt like just the right step in my career. So that's why I'm here now.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay. Um, from my personal experience, I wonder why the heck you would start an esports org. Not saying like
Yeah,
why
yeah,
you would become part of one, because like it is enjoyable, especially when someone's fronting the bill for it to
yeah.
work on something and help build. But like, why the heck now, especially when money
Mm,
seems way more expensive than it did the past 2 3 years
yeah,
during COVID? I know I'm not asking you to like speak on behalf of Prodigy, but like, do you know
yeah.
any idea why they decided now?
Yeah. No, I totally know what you're getting at, and I have this conversation all the time. Um, I think, I think it started for them this a lot of the same way that a lot of these, I call them pop-up teams or Twitter teams, or whatever you want to call them, where
Yeah.
kids that are in the com and love competitive Fortnite, like, they have this vision, and they're like, oh well, I see all these people doing it, and I want to do it. I want to own it. And I think the vision is very short term, of like, we have X amount of dollars that we can throw, and we're gonna enter the space. We're gonna, make branding and all of that, and we're gonna kind of go through the motions of what we think running an organization looks like, which is usually very surface level understanding. They just think it's like posting on Twitter and having a Twitter and like signing players, and that's it. And like, so they'll just come in to the scene, make a wave, make a splash by like signing a free agent who's like way too expensive for their first signing, especially. And then they'll run out of money in a couple of months, and then they disappear. And that's just kind of the cycle that you see continuously. And Prodigy, um, I think, was on that same track. In all honesty, it was just kind of, they were just kind of delaying the inevitable. I mean, they've been around, I think, 8 months this month,
Okay.
so not extremely long, but longer than some have lasted. But
Yeah, you make it a year,
that was,
you're pretty good.
yeah, but that was something, that was a big thing for me, right? Because in interviewing, in orgs and stuff, it wasn't just, oh, I want to be on an org, or I want to get a free, X amount of dollars per month for doing basically nothing. I really wanted something that I felt like had long term. potential. I wouldn't say guarantee because orgs are just not in that space, but I
Hmm.
I want to take on that challenge. And with PL, like right before we ended, we were actually about to turn profitable. Like it was not about money, and I think everyone assumed it was because it was the same cycle. But we were going through a very intentional restructuring with contract structures and with monetization routes, how we were doing that, and all of that stuff to try and make it break even or profitable. And we would have been with where we were headed. It was just a disagreement amongst the management and the ownership um, on how we wanted to proceed and continue, or it was just I think everyone was pretty stressed out and there was a lot of animosity and investors were dropping out. So I think it put more pressure on the ones that remained. But we were really willing to try and take that on because we wanted to build the next 100 Thieves, the next phase, and that takes running things super unorthodox comparatively to how orgs are run for the mainstay nowadays. So Prodigy, I think we're taking on that same challenge, and we've kind of me and Sad especially they brought us kind of both on in around similar times, um, and we have really been like, hey, don't make the same mistakes as us, like at PL, and like we really wanted we kind of view that as our second chance to relive that golden age of Prodigy that we feel like we were about to step or PL that we were about to step into with Prodigy now. So we're really trying to go unorthodox. Like we just dropped Death and Tahi, which I think a lot of people, if you're looking at it from the tunnel vision of the Fortnite scene, it's like those are your best assets. Which don't get me wrong, I love them and they are valuable assets. That they're great creators and players. Um, but we're kind of trying to do things different so that we can try to pave the path or get as close to that break even or profit point as possible. So I think that has become that like the why for me. And I think I've kind of imbued that vision of something long term and building a business, which takes a lot of sacrifices in the short term. It's like even if we have X budget to work with, let's not spend the entirety of that on player and creator salaries, right? Like that there's a lot of stuff that is I think uncomfortable or is not the ideal for these kids who just have big bright eyes about the Fortnite competitive scene and getting their names out there. But I think in terms of really making a wave in esports the way it stands right now, that's how it's going to be.
Yeah, well, and I think the biggest thing is being able to actually earn some revenue because at
Hmm.
first that becomes really difficult to do. YouTube and TikTok are probably the two like fastest paths to that,
Yeah.
but most legitimate brands, unless you've absolutely exploded, they're
Hmm.
gonna want 6 months of history before they even decide that like, nah, it's not worth my time. Like there's plenty of companies and organizations offering the same or similar things to you.
Yeah.
So now that you've the groundwork of the 6 months is there, now like you can start reaching out for sponsorships and things like that, but it's still an uphill battle. There's a lot
Yeah.
that goes into it. I don't envy people. I think
Yeah.
uh, I talked to you about like I worked with Elite a couple years ago, and
Mhm.
it's way more work than I wanted to put in order for it to work. And like you
Yeah.
have to make sacrifices, like you just said. And for me at the time, I wasn't willing to do that. So props to you
Mhm.
for being willing to put in the time and effort. And going back to like Death and Tahi, I think a lot of people see the names and that's all they see. But
Mhm.
there's so much more value certain players bring. Like someone that's consistent, shows up on time, does their stuff,
Yep.
not afraid to put their face out there, streams with a face cam, actually
Yeah.
streams
Yep.
regularly, puts out content. Like those are the biggest things that it comes down to
Yep.
bring value back to an organization because granted, most players don't do much for the org after the official announcement tweet.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I mean, hey, there's some that are great examples, but there's also
Yeah.
way more players that are absolutely terrible that don't
Yeah.
actually put in the effort. So
No, there's
finding
there's a
those,
culture.
yeah,
Yeah.
finding those like good ones is key
Yeah.
to being successful. Like NPen on Elite, I think is a great
Oh,
example of
yeah.
someone that
Man, I
has
love Ed
been
Penn.
consistent, maybe didn't have like a
Mhm.
massive blow up right away, but like now he has and
Yeah.
he's blown up on TikTok, seeing more consistency and that growth then
Mhm.
translates back to what you're trying to do.
Yep. Yeah, there's been a culture, I think, in the scene, and I think this is due to the inherent youngness and I think immaturity of the Fortnite scene specifically, of entitlement. And I think that a lot of players and creators um, think that, an announcement tweet and then repping the org in their IGN and their Twitter is um a fair service for the compensation that they're receiving, and that's just not for orgs to exist. That can't be the standard. It just cannot be that bare bones, or they need to start expecting a lot less money for those types of things. But the expectation on their side is I'm going to get my rent paid for, or I'm getting a nice little um stack of cash that's going to pad my cash flow every month, in exchange for, I mean, really, that is almost nothing. Yes, like you're kind of piggybacking the org's brand on your brand, but there's not enough going in and out, and that's something that we've focused on, in terms of contract restructuring, um, is to try and eliminate that as much as possible. And I think that will also inherently weed out anybody who is unwilling to enter a mutually beneficial business relationship, because that's what it should be. We should be benefiting each other. It shouldn't be a one-way street either
Yeah.
way. And that's I think that's a hard concept that's maybe lost on a lot of the bigger names in the scene, and that's also changed our signing strategy to maybe not include some of the biggest names in the scene. Like one of the biggest examples from Pipeline was Cooper. Cooper was pretty unknown when we signed him. I mean, he had like 5K earned and basically no followers on anything. But we had a really great recruiter in Avaft, and he saw the potential, and I saw the potential in his content. He is a great speaker, a great interviewer. Um, so and he blew up, and now he's one of the biggest names in the scene right now. So I think taking those and trying to create growth and cultivate it, our system, is something that we're focusing on now, instead of just throwing money at the big names and trying to get them to, because realistically we're borrowing their brand.
Yeah.
That's for the period of time that they are contracted. And I think you were kind of alluding to this earlier. When you're running an organization, it's almost as if you're just one giant content creator. Like, you have to worry about your brand as an organization, independent of whoever is on your roster at the time. Now, yes, you build that by having familiar names in the scene that have their stay there and all of that stuff, and build familiarity with your brand. But the whole point is to be using that to strengthen your brand over time, to where it becomes its own independent thing. I mean, you look at a Dignitas, or whoever, any of the top names in the scene right now, their brand is completely independent of whoever's on their roster at the time, and that's the goal. That's what you're building towards as a business as well. um, so yeah, it's changed a lot of how we do things.
Yeah, I would say the I mean, obviously the Coopers are very few and far between,
Of
and
course, yeah.
um the hardest part's trying to find someone that's willing to put in the effort. And I've
Hmm.
changed my tone on this. Like at first I used to harp on players that they had to create content. They need to be doing
Hmm.
these things. But then now more recently I've realized, one, how hard it is just to make content. Like I was
Hmm.
doing it, but also like didn't really do much else, if I'm being
Hmm.
honest. And then it's really hard to be a top player in this game and stay a top player. So then combining those two things, having to deal with both of them, makes it really difficult. So you either need a great team around you, like
Yeah.
editor, someone that'll grab clips for you, someone constantly reminding you like, hey, make sure you save your games, because that's a big thing that like some players
Yeah.
just don't even think about, and nor should they sometimes when you're in an FNCS
Yeah.
grand finals. That should
Right.
be the last thing you're thinking about. But if you want to make more than just being a player, that is something you have to think about. And I mean, there are ways in certain players that I hope could do those things, and there's
Hmm.
players that I've thought could do those things, and it just doesn't happen. Um, so I hope to see. I think we are in. I keep calling this the golden age of Fortnite.
Mm.
But we've had like Kanata come back to Twitch and absolutely I don't want to say blow up because he was huge already, but like his
Yeah, yeah.
streams stayed really solid since coming back.
Mhm.
Cooper just blew up, Asian Jeff, Reason out in the EU just had a massive blow up. Um, so we're seeing a ton of it at the moment,
Yeah.
and I I think it's all just from like the effort that the players have put in finally now
Mhm.
picking up because it's not just like you go from 0 to 10,000, a million in like a few
Yeah.
months. Like you lay the framework, and
Yep.
then once you get there, start having success, then you're already a machine that then is able to take advantage of what you're doing. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, do you have any insights into like I don't know that you're recruiting or whatnot, but what
Mm.
your game plan is? Say you could pick any player right now, regardless if they're on a
Ooh.
roster. Like, who
Ooh.
are you with the thought that you actually have to pay them what they're worth too, not just
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
have
of
to
course.
bring them on?
Um, my personal signing philosophy would center around who can balance the best and who is a strong asset in both aspects, in both regards, especially when you think about ROI in regards to the org side, the business side. Um, because so when we restructured and the way we're restructuring right now is we want to have a very small core roster for competitive that we really do believe in and that they can focus on competitive, but we still want them to participate in team videos and all of that stuff. um, but then we want to pad that with as much content as possible and build the org's brand. If I were looking at specific people to sign, um, I mean, just because I know Cooper personally, I love Cooper, and his work ethic is insane. He is a he does not have as much of that ego. I think that a lot and entitlement that a lot of the other people that are similar in size to him have. Um, someone like a Cooper or an Asian Jeff or um, even Peterbot, I think makes really good content when he's trying. I would wish he would stream more if I were to sign him personally. Um, but yeah, I think a lot of those younger, less entitled um, guys who are able to make entertaining content and be a content creator and also compete at a high level. I mean, I would rather sign somebody who's a top 15, top 20 consistently in grands that also makes a consistent content stream than someone who I feel like only has a chance of reaching a top three.
Okay. I feel like those are one and the same, to be honest. Like, I guess not. There's definitely teams that I think actually have a chance to win versus like the teams in the top 15 or so. Um,
Mm,
but yeah, it is complicated. And the way I see it is being a Fortnite org is limited. And we can move on. I mean, if you don't want to talk about this, it's just
whatever
um
you want to talk about.
okay.
I'm all
But like
game.
being a Fortnite org is limited from what we've seen. All the largest ones, like 100 Thieves, was the example you gave earlier. Like you have to expand beyond just a single game and even like a single
Yeah.
creator. You need to be able to do that. And I mean, there's very few. I think Wave is one of the few within Fortnite that has been able to like branch out beyond. I'm trying to
Mm,
think of others that were started in the game and then
yeah, yeah,
became
yeah.
more, but I can't, to be honest. Um,
None come to mind for me either off the top of my head. But yeah,
have you thought about that challenge of like how you get beyond
definitely.
that?
Definitely. Because I think um Fort is very unique, maybe in a bad way, in regards to the reputation that it has outside of the bubble of the game and the scene. Um, I think it's very hard to transition out for that reason because people look at Fortnite and they're like, oh man, like the things those pros are doing and saying and all of that stuff. The reputation is I don't think it's completely undeserved, or I would say it's mostly deserved. In regards to what is the standard in this community. You hear the horror stories all the time. If you go on the timeline, you will see something that's like, oh wow. Um, Yeah, it's absolutely a challenge, and that's something that we've talked about a lot, in regards to, again, like the caliber of person that we want on our organization representing our brand, and having, things in line that try and rally that in, and things like social media training, where it's like, yeah, you can post these things, you cannot post these things, don't say this, don't do this, don't, all of that stuff. Because you'll see, for examples, like you'll see pros. I remember DreamHack Dallas of last year, there was a couple pros who posted like pictures of, or tweets of them, like, that were either alluding to the fact that they had been drinking, or just proving straight up that they had been drinking. And like, people know their ages, like you're a public figure, people know how old you are. So it was like they were incriminating themselves on Twitter, which was just like insane to me, that they're just so willing to do that, and that they're not worried about what that can do to like their brand. um so that's something that we want to eliminate, and kind of create a culture, at least at our organization level. I would love if it spread to the rest of Fortnite esports, um, but at our organization level, to try and create a culture of professionalism that is super absent in the scene. I think barring, those top organizations that know what they're doing, and have everything in place, like a Dignitas, I think is always going to be the example, at least for this era of Fortnite.
Yeah.
But um, it would, I think it's lost on the players, that how that would affect the Fortnite esport product as a whole. Like that, it just, if they were taking, if Fortnite esports was taken more seriously, because of, you know uh a level of professionalism that isn't there right now, I think it would have this surge. It would be the closest that we've gotten to, I think, the truest potential of Fortnite as an esport. Because I truly believe from the bottom of my heart that Fortnite would be the biggest esport in the world, bar none. It would not be anywhere close if it reached its furthest potential. And I think it's limited a lot just by the reputation now that it is, garnered from that younger, more immature scene.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I mean, part of it's also bugs, cheaters, all this stuff
Yeah,
that goes
absolutely.
on. I've just talking to some people that like follow esports, but not necessarily Fortnite. It's like one,
Yeah.
they definitely do see it as a kid's game. Like that's a huge
Mhm.
thing that has to be overcome. And I think it slowly is as the top players age up because
Yeah.
now you think, I mean, Cooper's what, 16, 17 years old at this point now.
Yeah.
Peterbot's 16, 17 years old. And like they were
Yeah.
the youngins and now they're about to be
Yeah.
18 shortly. Um,
Yeah.
and I believe like Miro, Booga, like they're all turning
19,
21.
20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
kind of crazy to see we've gone from like this group of children that were really good at this video game. Now it's like a group of
Mhm.
young men and
Yeah.
seeing how they've held themselves because there's some great examples. Like Acorn, I think, is one of my
Mm.
favorite examples of a player that didn't necessarily want to do content all the time. You can see there's lulls and when he is active and not, but dude's a fucking winner. And like he just wants
Yeah.
to win. He wants to be the best and talking to him it stands out. All he cares about
Mhm.
is like I want to be the best. And then like on the opposite side, I guess not opposite, but like in a similar vein, you have like a Booga who's been at the top for I guess 4 or 5
Yeah.
years now and somehow still stays there, which is
Yeah.
unbelievable. And I think those stories, especially longer ones, like a Mongrel Savage
Mhm.
coming back on EU, that
Yeah.
recaptivates a lot of people that were like, "Ooh, I didn't necessarily know that they were still playing this game, and they're
Yeah.
not children anymore." So it's like it
Mhm.
turns a gear in people's head that now allows them to, I guess, rethink of Fortnite as an esport. And also, I think the product's getting better.
Yeah.
Just
Absolutely.
visually from if you were to watch a broadcast or if you were to go
Mhm.
watch, let's say, Mongrel or Savage, I do think what we're watching is now better than it's been. Granted, it's not perfect, but it's definitely
Yeah.
better and it allows people to understand it more
Yeah.
because that's also a huge challenge of like this game is so freaking complicated and if
Yeah.
you play the game, you probably still have no idea what competitive Fortnite looks like.
Yeah. No, digestible was going to be the word that came to mind for me in regards to where the product has gone. Um, you see the care taken, especially with the broadcast. Like I said, doing a watch party, um, watching the official broadcast, like the care that was taken to try and make sure that things like storm surge were understood, and in a package that's understandable for the demographic and the audience. Like that's no small feat. It Because storm surge, I think most people, like you said, still wouldn't truly understand what that actually is,
Yeah,
and
it's
how
also
much thought needs to go into that.
it's
Um,
impossible to explain to someone one time. Like you have to
yeah,
watch
yeah,
multiple broadcasts in order to understand it, because
hmm
the best explanation could happen while you're listening, fully paying attention, and you still won't get it. So like it
yeah,
needs to be reinforced time after time, and you need to find a way to keep people coming back so that they can learn the
yeah.
little intricacies. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah. No, no, absolutely. That's a great point. No, it is. But things like that, the competitive package really has improved so much. Especially, I think since the time of Invitational in Raleigh, we've really seen a progression in that sense. I was unable to attend Copenhagen last year, but I hear it was just unbelievable, and a marked improvement, which is great because Raleigh was like Invitational was truly one of the best experiences that I've had in the scene, and I still have very, very fond memories of it. But yeah, the competitive product I've been very impressed with, and I've seen the care that's been taken, and it feels like there's been more freedom than there has in the past to refine the competitive product. Kind of, I think for Epic, it seems to me like they're kind of saying, as long as you stay in your lane, you can, make it the best that you can. I think they're limited in what they can do, but they are trying to maximize to that limit on the competitive side, which I'm very happy about. Something that you touched on that I think is super interesting is like this is the hardest esport in the world, and I think maybe because of the reputation or because it's a cartoony graphic kids game or whatever the thing is, I think that's lost on people. Um, but it truly is like, I mean, to compete at the top level of this game is just as hard as any other esport. And then you add things like building and editing and storm surge and all of that stuff on top of it. It truly is just unbelievable what these people are capable of. And I would dare to say that the average viewer, listener, watcher has no clue how much better the average tier 2 or tier 3 pro is than them. Um, it's kind of like I don't know if I think you're an NBA guy.
I
Um,
like my fair share of sports.
the Brian Scalabrine, is that his name? The quote of
Scalabrini,
like,
yeah, the White
yeah, I'm
Mamba.
closer. Yeah, I'm closer to LeBron than you are to me. He like said that, and I feel like that in regards to Fortnite is super applicable as well. Those guys at the top level can do things, and they have things going through their brain. Like you can watch them and think, oh, he did a Mongo Classic. I know exactly what was going through his head. But like, there's a million things that you wouldn't even clock on that they're thinking and going through. And I wish that was understood when people are watching, like the broad, like there's so much depth to the game that people don't understand what they're watching when they're watching it. And I feel like if that understanding were communicated, which is not, it is so much easier said than done, that the esport would have a better reputation and maybe be more respected.
Yeah, I always think it comes back to fundamentals. Like the
Mm,
pros are just so fundamentally sound versus the average player must make just within a fight like 30 mistakes. And
hmm.
there's in box movement, the timing of when you actually make the edit you choose, the
Yep.
shot you take, where
Yep.
you're moving after you take the shot. Like, are you strafing
Mhm.
left or right? Are you going to
Yeah.
then reset your build and then hold it after? Like, there's so much just within a simple wall to wall box fight that can be broken down, where a lot of the top pros in the back of their mind, they're doing it perfectly, but they don't realize that because they're playing so freely. Whereas, I mean, I don't know how good you are, but you're not a pro player. So I'm going to say you
Nope.
and I,
Yep.
we would make mistakes within those fights and we're not winning anywhere. I mean, maybe I give myself 5 rounds, if I were to play 100 in a box fight, I think I could take
Yeah.
off one of the pros. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's the level of consistency because fighting someone like
Yeah.
Peterbot, he moves so quickly that you
Yeah.
rarely get opportunities to actually shoot him. And it's
Yeah.
crazy. If you go watch replay mode and you watch a player that gets taken out, their POV, and you
Yep.
watch how
Yep.
Peterbot kills them, there's like
Yep.
two small opportunities to get chip damage on him. Otherwise, he's
Yep.
just like moving, shot, build. Okay, I just shot a
Yep.
wall and this guy's disappeared. So
Yep.
that is, like you said, impossible, I think, to really discuss during a broadcast.
Mm.
Because if I'm going to sit there and tell you, like, oh man, his strafe to the left along with the edit that he put down and then the
Yeah,
reset of the
yeah,
build,
right.
like that. One, okay, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here. I apologize.
Go ahead.
One, I feel like recently the broadcast has not let, or at least just on NA, has not let fights like breathe afterwards because
Mm.
I, after every elimination, it was like immediately switch. And yes, I
Mm.
know there's action going on. There's 100 players. We're only going to be able to see one POV, maybe two at the same time. But even still, I don't think the two POVs actually works because you're only watching one of the two. And
Mhm.
they would go like elim switch to a whole nother fight. It's like sometimes
Mhm.
just like let it breathe, let the analyst or the commentator break
Yeah,
down what
yeah.
just happened, explain it, and then after we feel like that's had an
Mm.
opportunity of a breath, then
Mm.
move on to the next one. And that's
Sure.
one thing that I feel like we've gone from, because of the speed at which Fortnite is played, we've gone
Yeah.
from interesting early game, boring mid game for 15 minutes, to awesome end game that everyone wants to watch. And then we've had
Yeah.
storm surge changes, we've had zone changes, and now it's pretty much like early game fights off spawn, straight into the next fights, straight into the next fights. And I do think it's good. Like I think it's entertaining, but I also think that within, like me just thinking, within an NBA game or an NFL game, there are
Yeah.
natural pauses where you're given
Yeah.
time to develop a situation or explain a situation or even present
Mhm.
like what you're about to see. There's 30 seconds left, two timeouts for both teams. Here's how we
Yeah,
see
yeah.
this is going to happen, and this team needs this. I, that lacks, I feel like, within
Mm.
Fortnite. And granted, it's a brand new product, right? Blast has been doing
Yeah.
this for 2.5, 3 years at the time, which is nothing. So hopefully they get better at it. They've been given years now to do it. But
Yeah.
to me, that's the biggest improvement that needs to happen, is finding like a more
Mm.
natural way to show the game that allows more
Sure.
than just like, what's the word? Someone tweeted about this, but pretty much just reactionary casting content.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, totally. Um,
Sorry, there's my rant.
no, no, I loved it. And I agree. Because I do think, in regards to the competitive product, it is all about conversion of the casual audience. I think and that's like it. Yes, it is for the diehard fans just as much, but like they understand a lot of that. Like the true diehards, the people who are like 21 sub to Aussie. I mean, that's not exact translation, but you know what I mean, where they're
It's a pretty
invested
good
in it
one.
and they know what they're talking about. Like they're gonna watch it and they're gonna understand a lot of what's going on. That casting and that education is not for you. It just like with the NBA, a lot of that analysis is not really for people who have been playing basketball for 20 years and have been watching the NBA for that long and whatever. Like there will be things that you pick up on because those analysts know so much about the game and they're so passionate about it. But the product truly is for people that are on that learning curve, who are towards the beginning of it, that are developing in that sense. Um, and yeah, I mean, it would be awesome. I think, like you said, to see a more natural cadence and rhythm and dissection of like, here's why, like, here's the depth of what you just saw and why you don't understand how amazing it is. And I think it would build an appreciation, like we were talking about earlier. I fought Kanata in a Jarian video. It was me and Jarian 2v1 versus Kanata, and there were legitimately times where he was shooting me, and I didn't even know where he was. It wasn't just like, wow, how did he hit me there? It was literally like he had access to faster movement or something than I did. Like it truly was mind-boggling to like fight him and then think about like the average rank kid that I fight and like I'll struggle against those guys and then to think about him and like the level that he's at where I was seriously was like I'm fighting a ghost. He's invisible. He has to be. Like I'm getting hit from angles I didn't even know were possible. Um but just a personal anecdote to add to what you were saying earlier, like it truly is they're echelons above, and it's crazy.
And so I'm also, as someone that's been on the broadcast, I'm so hesitant of making it for the noob
Mm,
because one, I feel like I was not hired to talk about how you make a peanut butter edit. But at the same time, that's
yeah.
also somewhat part of it, right? Is someone says, "Oh,
Mm,
peanut butter edit," like most people don't
mhm.
know it. And maybe that's where you need to put like fly-ins where it says like peanut butter
Yeah,
edit that shows what it is, or
yeah.
during a natural pause you can kind of explain that, but I don't know. I'm on both sides because it's like one, you don't want to dumb down the esport so that
Mhm,
like the people that actually care about what's going on are going to be pissed off that you're just like sitting there explaining a peanut butter edit versus
mhm.
you also need to be able to explain to me like I'm 5 sometimes of how this
Yeah.
concept is or is not working. Um yeah, I
The
don't know.
It's not just that the skill ceiling is so high, it's that the skill gap is bigger than any other esport, I would say. I mean, like a Valorant, you take a Valorant like average ranked match, it's going to have, albeit at a lower level, it's going to have echoes of what you're going to see at the top level.
Yeah.
There's an understanding that translates there. Fortnite, that's not the case. You can't take a public match and try and you know graft it onto what a competitive match looks like. They're not going to match almost at all. There's very, very little similarity. And I think that, speaking to the issue and the difficulty of making the product palatable for the most amount of people as possible, is you have to reach the widest canyons of consumer. It's not easy to do by any stretch. So yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm on both sides too, because I don't want it to all just be, you know, oh, this is what a Mongrel Classic is. This is what a peanut butter edit is. Like, oh, see how he opened a window there instead of, a wide edit? And it's like, but then at the same time, it's like you don't want to be so far into it that it's inaccessible for the newer audience as well. It truly is like it's a really difficult thing to do.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, probably the NFL is the best example now
Mm,
because they've been putting out it's called All 22 where you
okay.
have video perspectives of all of the
Mm,
cameras. So you pay for the service and then now there's people on YouTube literally breaking down film of here's this angle, this specific player, this is why this play works. And even I've
mm,
learned something. I've watched the NFL my entire life and
yeah, yeah,
I've learned stuff this year watching YouTube videos that I've never learned and didn't even like think of. And
yeah,
that's not something that really in my brain I thought was possible that I'd be that ignorant about something I've watched my entire life. But that's true. And
yeah.
I feel like it's now up to people, whether it be like the official Fortnite competitive channels, people like Resub,
Mm,
myself, organizations putting out content to
mm,
um, help create fans and create
yeah,
more educated fans that actually understand what's going on, um, which is a thing. Also, we just hit like peaks for this previous FNCS. So I'm
yeah,
like, do we really need to change too much? It seems like whatever's going on is working.
yeah, yeah.
I'm also a little, so I was having this discussion. I don't know whether or not the views were botted this past weekend because it was like,
It was insane. It
yeah,
truly like I mean, I do think part of it was, the storylines and I think the returning of major figures. Like you talked about EU, you have Mongrel and Savage qualifying to grands, Mongrel's return. That was a huge thing because just like Fortnite OG, right? We saw the peak of those numbers because of a callback, an homage, a return to the nostalgic age of the cultural phenomenon that was Fortnite at that time. So I think that was part of it for sure. Um, I don't know. I mean, Clix's viewership, for example, peaking at whatever it was, 115K,
Yeah, it was
120K,
definitely
like
over 100.
that is insanity. I mean, that's top, I don't know, probably 100 generously of all of Twitch at the time, like that. I mean, I know he was over Kai Cenat at the time, so maybe even way above top 100. But like, I don't know. I don't know about like I'm not necessarily conspiracy theorist. Well, maybe except for when it comes to Yamzo and Rise. Um, that was
We can
something
talk
that,
about them in a sec.
yeah. It was good to see though. I mean, I loved it. I loved seeing the numbers. I loved seeing I mean, they were impression tweets, but like of just these, catalogs of everyone's live and they all have minimum 5K if they're a name that's been known for multiple years in the scene. I love seeing that. I guess for me, from an from my perspective of like wanting to be a creator in the scene, wanting to have a career that is sustainable, those types of numbers like need to happen and continue and to grow and all that. So that was encouraging for me to see like Fortnite in that spot where I was like, oh, maybe there can be some hope. Like obviously that would just be the first brick in laying the foundation of a groundwork for being able to have full-time careers within the esport. Um, but yeah, it was super encouraging from that perspective.
Yeah, I think if those numbers stay, because the category peaked at like over 800,000 viewers on Sunday for EU. And I'm
That's
just like,
insanity.
dude, that is legitimately more peak viewership in the category than Global Championship back in October. And
Yeah.
the only like single viewer average for the official Fortnite stream, I went through this. I've like, because I
Yeah,
am being a conspiracy theorist about this. And like,
yeah.
it's either
Yeah,
awesome or we're all being like having the wool
duped,
pulled
yeah,
over our heads.
yeah,
So I don't know. Like for me, I would love if the numbers were true. It just doesn't
right,
seem
mm,
like week over week they would increase as much as they did, which is why I was confused. Um,
sure,
like Aussie had his biggest stream he's ever had.
yeah,
Boop's numbers were crazy. Amar was at like 40K as well. So all the usual suspects were well above their normal numbers, which again, like it could honestly just be like I'm hating and this is something that's about to be awesome for the entire year because it does translate across like YouTube and TikTok. We're
mm,
seeing Fortnite viewership just in general is way
yeah,
up. So
yeah.
yeah, maybe I'm just being a hater and like I it's not being a hater.
I think
It's
it's somewhat founded. No, I think some true skepticism and criticism is absolutely, there's a space for it. I'm all about intellectualism. I'm a philosophy major, so that's right up my alley. I love that stuff.
yeah, I think I'm just inherently skeptical of good
Mhm.
things. Like whenever some good happens, I'm like,
Yeah,
nah, this
yeah.
this can't be. It's too good. But I guess there was bad during FNCS and Yamzo and Rise. You said you had a theory about that.
Oh, man. Well, okay. I mean, you look at the just the facts of they were in first by a considerable margin, and all of a sudden, they had none of these problems through the first day and a half of grands. You know, their internet starts bugging out and they disconnect from two matches out of the last four. With packet loss into the games they did get into, which is a significant factor, especially in a very, very laggy Grands lobby.
Oh yeah.
Um, I just, considering the history, I mean, if I were a detective, I'm like, okay, what have Fortnite pros been proven to be willing to do in the past? I mean, we've had, you know, collusion, surge trading, all of that stuff. We've had, people in the top of the bracket paying people at the bottom to surprise con other people. Like we have had some pretty scummy or some
Unethical.
things that, yeah, that breaches of competitive integrity
Yeah.
that have happened. So I don't, unfortunately, I don't put it past 90 something percent of the pros in that Grands lobby to do something like that, to try and close that gap on the top of the leaderboard, which is exactly what happened. I mean, they dropped all the way to eighth by the end of Grands, which is I mean, one, you talk about the loss there. That's a significant difference in prize pool, in reputation. You know, if they want to get signed again somewhere, like that placement means a lot for them in their career. Um, but I think it's more likely that that was foul play than just a streak of unluck, which a lot of people I think wanted to write it off as maybe to not address what's going on or to say, oh yeah, like to clear people's names or whatever. But yeah, in terms of being a conspiracy theorist, I think that for me was like I think there was absolutely some foul play there, which is really unfortunate to all the stuff we've already talked about in terms of reputation and maturity and competitive integrity and all of that.
Now, do you think that it was a player that was in that lobby, or obviously it wasn't them, right? They're too busy
Right,
doing
right, right,
other
right,
things, so they would have
right.
either told
Yeah,
someone or paid someone to
commission
do it.
somebody too. Yeah.
Um, or do you think it
I
was someone they pissed off throughout their career
mm,
that said, "Fuck this guy. They're winning. I'm gonna take him down. Know his IP address." Um,
mm.
I
I
don't know.
I don't know. I just think given the circumstances, because it wasn't like that they were just in the top pack. They were in first by a considerable margin. And those games were so key. I mean, if they had had two good games in games 3 and 4 of day two, they pretty much would have solidified at least a top five. You know, like they would have been in that running pretty heavily. It would have been really difficult to fall out of that. So I think just the timing of it, the nature of where they were on the leaderboard, I could absolutely see it being someone who was in that second pack, you know, because there's on a leaderboard, there's natural gaps.
Yeah,
There's like packs of people that all kind of move together. So like it'll usually be somewhere around fifth to eighth where you see this like big drop where it's like depending on the format, it could be like 40 or 50 points where it's like, okay, these guys aren't really going to catch this pack, but this pack could make, um, I could see it being anyone in that second pack group. I obviously don't remember who was in that group at the time of that leaderboard. Um, but yeah,
Prodigy
I could see that
Noxy.
happening. Yeah, man. No, um, I hope not. I wish Noxie had squeezed out a top five, but that's a completely different discussion. But no, I mean, I could see it being that second. I feel like that's the most likely explanation because it's like there's a very clear motive, there's a very clear reward, like all of that stuff. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think that also is like a generous thing to think that people just aren't a piece of shit that are going to try and take someone down just to see what happens, which
Mm,
unfortunately in this age of the
yeah.
internet is
No,
like
it.
way too
I think it's
common.
absolutely possible. I'm not dismissing that possibility. I just think it's
More
more
likely.
yeah, more probable that it was somebody who had a lot more to gain. But yeah, I mean, no, I wouldn't put it past most of the stupid teenagers in this community, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that does kind of throw out a huge flaw. One with Fortnite tournaments being online, because now
Mhm.
this is like the first major time that I can remember it happening. Because I mean, I believe this has happened in the past, just not to like the first place team multiple
Yeah.
games. Um,
Yeah.
but now almost you need as a player or a organization like the Dignitas House, they need to take cybersecurity very
Yeah.
seriously. Like, say their whole house got hit, like that is a
Yeah.
ton of
Yeah.
money being lost by those players. So that is now a whole another layer that
Yeah.
one is a cost, which everyone
Yep.
loves additional costs, and
Yep.
two is like a fear that I'm sure Yamzo Rise next time they're in a grand finals will be there'll be a thought in the back of their mind of like, what if someone starts hitting us down, or like their ping spikes
Yeah.
for a second and they're like, oh
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
it's happening again.
Yeah. And it's not like you can just have a land for grands for every single region, every single
Yo, but
FNCS. I mean,
come
that's
on,
just
give me that,
oh, it
please.
would be fantastic. Like yeah, I mean that would be my dream, but it's just not. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It can't happen, unfortunately.
Fortnite
But yeah,
lands are
no,
so unsustainable and like typically
mhm,
not going to make money. So
yeah,
it's
I
nonsensical.
yeah. Oh, don't get me wrong. I love that we're getting treated to one a year, like the year long lead up to globals format. I'm very happy with that because I mean they're just I've preached this time and time again on my own podcast, but like just go if you can. Go to any land if you can. Even a dream hack is just like a magical experience. I think it. it removes so much of what makes the gaming world toxic and hard to swallow at times, because it just, you get to have real life connection with these people. And I think it legitimizes a lot of connections that you can begin online, and it just strengthens them to this level that is just unprecedented. Um, but anyway, that's my mini rant about that.
Yeah.
I love lands.
I would echo that. Definitely go. And DreamHack in a sense is almost better because
Mm,
there's multiple game tournaments that are going on. So if like you're full on nerd like me, you're gonna be out in the pit watching Fortnite
hmm
players play, and then you're like, oh, let me go watch the Smash tourney, and then there's the StarCraft
I
2, and it's like just
yep,
soaking it all in, and you're just
I'm a
hanging
big
out.
Smash guy. Yeah,
Yo,
I'm a big
yeah,
Smash guy, and that's something that that I have wanted, like, to I've tried to kind of get to that, like, Smash, that community when it's in person is so tight knit. It's so like grassroots and stuff. And there's just so much like that is one that I would not hesitate to use the word community. I think in Fortnite, I'm like very hesitant at times.
there's
I sometimes I
viewers.
employ that. Yeah, like because it just it doesn't feel like a community to me. I
Yeah,
the first time I truly felt comfortable employing that word was after invitational, like actually getting to meet these people in real life, and like everyone that was there was so nice, and it was just like this unbelievable experience, getting to talk to people like Monster and a bunch of creators, Bronos and Fox and all these people. But yeah, I wish that Fort would echo Smash in that way. Obviously it's a lot more difficult because Smash is like a 1v1 bracket. You can have 15 people in a tournament, like that's so much easier to manage. But
yeah,
I love the tight knitness of it all. But yeah, no, being able to branch out into other games and to watch other esports, like I love Smash. So yeah, DreamHack is a great one. I think if you're just that one is a lot more like of a trip, I guess, or like a vacation in that sense than like a global is like you're obviously there for the competitive aspect mainly, and then there's just an added bonus of all the people that share that love of competitive with you. Whereas DreamHack can just be like, dude, go meet all of your friends that you've had online for years at this point and go explore other esports. And like, it's a much more casual, laid back, I think is what I'm getting at. But
yeah. It definitely is, and like you're there for whatever you want to do at the
hmm
DreamHack versus like if you're there for globals, let's say this year, it's you're there for the games, however they
yeah,
decide to play them. I don't think they've no, I think it's 2 6 day 6 game
two
days.
6 days. I would
I
hope so.
I don't know, whatever. That's a whole other conversation we could dive into that
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
ready for. But yeah, it is awesome. And like the community in Smash is way better. They've
hmm
survived like who was it? It was Mango has this awesome rant about how the Smash community is cockroaches. And he's like, you'll try and nuke us, but we're gonna
Try and
come
spot
back.
this. Yeah,
You can't
yeah,
defeat us no matter what. It'll be a bunch of sweaty dudes in garages playing Smash, and you can't stop us. And it's just like, wow,
yeah, yeah,
if you took the
yeah.
money out of Fortnite, I don't know that anyone would have that passion. But it's also
hmm
like Smash is almost 20 years old. It may even be 20 years
Melee,
old.
yeah, Melee. It was 99. I think it's
Oh,
or
so yeah, we're
or Melee
25.
was maybe with Melee it was like 01, 02,
I'm
something
thinking
like
it's
that.
01. So
Yeah,
I
oh
guess that
one,
would
yeah.
still be 20 years old. Um,
Yeah. No, it's been around forever. And that is despite Nintendo's frequent attempts to try
oh
and
yeah.
to vanquish it as well. That like that it's not like Nintendo has kept this scene running. This is all people who are just super passionate about it. And that's I mean, that's esports as a whole, man. It is people being so passionate about something that they just do it, results be damned. It esports is that's the beauty of it for me of esports is being self-made. You just you're self-taught, you're self-made. Um, I mean, you look at any of the casters, like I'm in with a lot of the casters. And that's just, like you all just started by casting on your own free time because you enjoyed it, and then it grew into a career. You talk to any of the creators or the pros or any of that, they just it started as a passion project and it grew into so much more. And that truly is like the allure of esports to me, and that's what I want my career and my journey to be. And I've tried that in a lot of different sex and a lot of different avenues of that, like I just started doing like voiceover work and like all of that stuff. But Yeah, it is. It's just truly about like finding your passion, pursuing your passion, and if it turns into something, then you can make it career, you can monetize it, you can make it a business. But esports, at the end of the day, it's all about that. The indomitable human spirit to just continue something that you're passionate about.
You know what? Let's end on that. That's a great little outro. I
Cool.
appreciate you, man. That's yeah, I feel very similar. I don't need to add anything to that. Just do it, guys. If you want to actually make it, just fucking do it. That's all that matters, and you'll get better as you go. You won't be good at first. You'll get better, you'll get better, you'll
Mhm.
get better, and then hopefully you get good enough. And if you don't, hey, sucks. At least you tried though. Um
Yep.
Jamin, tell everyone where to find you, what you're doing, what's going on.
Yeah, at Jatmon TV on Twitter, and Twitch, and I think my YouTube is now matching that. I have a podcast that I do as well. I had SBG on it. That's at Ghostcoms Pod, on Twitter and YouTube.
All right,
You can
go
find me
check it
there.
out, guys. I appreciate you all listening wherever you do. Make sure to go leave us a review if you listen for an hour. Tell us whether or not I suck or not. And hey, hopefully it's a good one. But thank you guys. We'll see you next time.